Good morning, and thank you for joining us for this wonderful celebration. I'm Topeka K. Sam, founder and executive director of the Ladies of Hope Ministries. And we are live today. And as you know, with live, there are a few little housekeeping rules, and we have a little blooper sometimes, but it'll be fun. We'll have a lot of laughter, and we are here. So if we freeze, something happens, just stay with us. LOHM has a lot of information to share with you to learn more about what we do. So our mission is to create alternatives to incarceration and the legal system, providing trauma-informed and restorative pathways from prison and jail to make sure that we're transforming the harms that the system has caused. We know firsthand what happens to women and girls who are presently and formerly incarcerated. I'm grateful for all of our guests today who have joined us to celebrate each other and for our graduates. These women are powerhouses, and they are already out changing the world. Listen to what they have to say and watch what they do. For their wisdom, insight, and hard work are already helping to restore true justice in this hurting world. I'd like to turn now to address the graduates directly. You, each of you, are partners with us as we work to end poverty and incarceration of women and girls. You have been with us now for more than a year, and together we have come through some incredibly difficult times and challenging times, yet accomplishing transformative change. From our first Faces of Women in Prisons retreat together in June of 2019, you've grown into compelling storytellers, changing the narrative about the effects of the criminal legal system on women and girls. Your wisdom and personal stories have affected policy in both the public and private sectors, from our work to reducing harsh punishments imposed upon women who are arrested and sentenced for defending themselves, to legislation to ensure dignity for incarcerated women across this country. But your work doesn't stop there. Your work doesn't just change laws, it changes minds and builds understanding. I've heard each of you share your experiences, heard you share some of the hardest things any person could ever say out loud, and heard you use your voices to reveal truths about the police, courts, jails, prisons, and community supervision systems. You build connections for people who may not see them and offer the face and voice to a crisis that so few people fully considered or even understood. As alumni of our Faces of Women in Prison cohort, I'm incredibly honored that you are members of our Global Speakers Bureau and will always be a part of the Ladies of Hope Ministries. Today, you graduate as powerful advocates, entrepreneurs, and change agents. Some of you have been part of our Pathways for Equity program, working to create durable pathways into family-supporting jobs in some of America's most sought-after workplaces. Some of you are thriving entrepreneurs, building businesses and creating your own opportunities that offer a model and maybe even a first job to those who even now are just dreaming of their release from prison and their first months home. Some of you are all of these things. You're building careers, you're developing new ideas and visions, and you're advocating powerfully to transform the system. I remember sitting on a prison bunk and thinking, if people saw the faces of women in prison, faces that looked like their mothers, sisters, daughters, grandmothers, there's no way any woman or girl would suffer inside of a cage of any kind again. And so thank each of you. You are all faces of women in prison. You are all ladies of hope. I commend you for your faith in the possibility of new lives. I congratulate you on all of your achievements, and I look forward to walking alongside you as you continue to transform lives, change the narrative, and work to end poverty and incarceration of women and girls. Now, I have a special thank you to Shirley Moore and Sally Davis. Your incredible work building this strategic alliance was just unprecedented, and I thank you. I also like to thank our funders, Arnold Ventures, Art for Justice, Foundation Chanel, and Ford Foundation. Without you, none of this would be possible. I would like to thank Kate Edmonds for all of your comm support and the entire Everyday Dimensions team for everything that you've done to put this to put this together. And lastly, I'd like to thank Patricia Lewis, the Director of Faces of Women in Prison. It is you who saw the vision and believed in the vision and followed it through. Thank you. Okay, I'm just giving you all just one moment just so that you can just go ahead and applause. So, though I'm not there in the room with you, I'm just giving it all a moment. So thank you. Take your seats now. Okay, and so without further ado, I would like to now introduce you to my mentor, my Queen Mother, our Queen Mother, and board chair of the Ladies of Hope Ministries, Reverend Eleanor Dr. Moody Shepherd, who will give us a reflection. Thank you, Reverend Moody.
I'm ready.
And you're live.
Oh, okay. I'm live?
Yes.
Okay. I would like to thank you, Topeka, for all of your hard work and all of the women that, and of course, the men who have brought this to fruition today. And I thank you for allowing me to bring this reflection. And I think my best reflection is a sacred one, a one that will offer prayers for the continuation of the work of this organization and for the power of these women. Let us pray. Gracious Creator, we pause in our busy lives to give thanks and celebration for this special time when your power is expressed through the women and men who have made it possible for this occasion. I pray for Topeka Sam, the founder and CEO of the Ladies of Hope Ministry. I pray for the administration and staff who support and work to carry out the mission of this ministry. I pray for the board who guides the structure and integrity and mission of this ministry. I pray for the donors whose generosity support the important service that is provided through this ministry. I pray today for these special candidates who have prepared themselves and have prepared themselves in a way that has led them to successfully complete the training and has come together to create a team of women. They come from the East, they come from the West, they come from the North, and they come from the South. And their voices will lift up in many places all over the world. They will be the voices for women and girls and families, for the women that are incarcerated and hoping, and for the formerly incarcerated who still have not been able to find their voices. Finally, I pray for the foundations of these women, the families as well as the families of all who are part of the Ladies of Hope Ministry. And finally, may justice roll down like water and righteousness like an everlasting stream. Ashe, ashe, ashe.
Thank you. We thank you, we honor you, and we are grateful to have you as board chair of Ladies of Hope Ministries. Your leadership, your guidance, your integrity, your spirituality has afforded us to all grow, not only professionally, personally, spiritually, and all the abilities of the world. So thank you, Reverend Dr. Moody. We lift you and we thank you.
I'm Trish Lewis, the Programs Director for Faces of Women in Prison. We're honored that you joining us today to celebrate the completion of this year's cohort. These women have been through so much and have worked so hard, and it is today that we celebrate their strength, their drive, and their resilience. We have an amazing lineup for you today, and as Topeka stated, we are live, so that leaves room for bloopers, errors, and technical difficulties. Please be patient with us. Any issues, just tap back in and we're going to get through this together. With that being said, we hope you enjoyed today's commencement and thank you again for tuning in.
Thank you, Ashe. Thank you, Reverend Moody. Thank you, Topeka. Thank you, Trish. Thank you, Faces of Women in Prison. I had a whole speech prepared, but I want to take this opportunity to have a moment of silence for Breonna Taylor, and we're still calling for justice in Breonna Taylor's case. And until justice is served, we will not rest. So I want to take this moment to just have a moment of silence. The life of Black women and Black people matters and is valuable. Thank you very much. Greetings. My name is Helena Washington. I use she, her pronouns. I am so excited to be here today at this graduation this year with Faces of Women in Prison. Right before the pandemic, actually, we were invited to TED Med to talk about health equity. And in that space, we were to make room for wonder about health equity. And in that space, I noticed that there wasn't really a mention of the Black maternal health crisis the way that it should be. It's a crisis. And for us to be at a health equity conference, I found it very interesting to see that there were no real representations of that crisis. And we were given the opportunity to speak with the sponsors of the TEDMed conference because we were invited there by the Robert Woods Johnson Foundation. And I took that opportunity to mention to the folks in the room that, I thought that it was really amazing how we're talking about health equity and there are no representations of the Black maternal health crisis like there are representations of diabetes, high blood pressure, and other health conditions represented throughout the conference. And it made a lot of folks in the room uncomfortable. It made me uncomfortable to even have to mention that type of thing at a health equity conference, but it is important for us to be in spaces because oftentimes people don't understand or recognize or even know what is happening. And I want to say, I feel oftentimes people don't care about what is happening. That is why it's important for us to be in these spaces, speaking our truths and speaking truth to power about the conditions that are facing not only Black people, brown people, and all other types of marginalized groups. It is important for us to be in these spaces to speak. That is why I am so grateful for the opportunity to have spoken at TEDMed and spoke about the lack of representation of that crisis through Faces of Women in Prisons and being invited to the TEDMed conference. I look forward to continuing to speak on issues impacting women, Black women in particular, and look forward to working with my sisters in this cohort and the cohorts to come. Congratulations to everyone. I am just excited beyond measure. I look forward to continuing work in the community as a reproductive justice advocate and activist. And with that, I am done.
Hi guys, good morning. Good morning. First, I'd like to say thank you. Thank you, God, and all things put God first. Thank you to the LOHM family. Thank you to Vika, especially thank you, Patricia. Thank you guys for the vision. Thank you for the support. We are the first cohort graduating, and with anything, there's hiccups. And you guys have been patient, you have been diligent, and you have been thankful. I am thankful like a million times. I had a plan and a speech and all these things planned out, and I have a little different schedule happening today. So I'm just going to push through because I love what I do and I love my cohort, and I will be here no matter what. I am the graduating face of faces. Oh, sorry. I am the graduating face of women. Faces of Women in Prison. I am the face of the second chance. My name is Diana Thomas Brazil. I served 36 months in federal prison, and I am a big advocate for reentry. I currently am a reentry specialist at Rikers Island, even though I'm not going in right now. Counseling. I hold motivational groups, parenting, financial planning, budgeting, anger management. I go in with the guys and work with them through any ambivalence they have concerning their release. I do discharge planning, I believe that reentry programs and services are important. They're important to everyone's life because these things are needed. These are the tools that some people need to be effective and to be successful outside in our communities. I am also the owner of Another Level Transportation. I am on the road right now. I have a full service moving company. I'm based out of New York and New Jersey. I am on the road as usual, but I also hire people who have had any contact with criminal justice system or who have been formerly incarcerated, not only for financial reasons, but to reduce recidivism within my community. I am a woman who's faced many adversities, start with child molestation, teenage pregnancy, I had domestic violence, homelessness, and incarceration. I've even had my rights taken away, but I'm the face of a woman who has had a second chance. I've used reentry. I believe in reentry, and through all of it, I've been able to have my life back. The loan's given me my life and actually became a part of my life as a family. I appreciate you guys and I love you guys. I am a believer that I am purposely positioned to stimulate movement in people's lives. And I hope that my story inspires anyone and everyone who's been impacted by the criminal justice system or any other system that has impacted them. Can pick up the pieces, you can be great, you can be successful, and you can do it, and you can get more. Thank you again to the whole family, my family.
Greetings, everyone. My name is Wendy Cooper. I am a native of New Orleans, Louisiana. Last Saturday, I held my first event as the Executive Director of Transcending Women. This event marked a major milestone in my journey to become the leader I was always meant to be. Faces of Women Imprisonment was an important stepping stone along the way. I was the only trans woman in FOI, yet none of the other women made me feel different. They treated me with respect and dignity. They made me feel like I was their sister. Ayana and Laura in particular embraced me with open arms. They made sure that I fully experienced the culture of New York. I would never forget the talking and laughing with them on the Brooklyn Bridge. When I told them my story and my struggles, they wept with me, admitting they had not been through half of what I have. That was a pivotal moment for me. Other women recognized and respected my resilience. The Women of Faces of Women in Prison cohort also recognized my leadership potential. All of the women have been through so much, yet wake up every day and find new ways to dismantle these systems that harm women. When I heard about the amazing things these ladies were doing, I knew it was time for me to branch out on my own. They came to me with so much good advice about speaking in public and approaching funders, but they also took advice from me. I was able to help them with their problems, explaining how they could navigate different obstacles. And they listened to me. They validated my unique perspective and showed me that I already am a leader. Our connection didn't end with a 3-day event. Faces of Women in Ministries and continue to offer each of us resources to build our organizations, and the women in the cohort still communicate, encouraging each other every day. My vision for Transcending Women is to support and empower all women, transgender, gender nonconforming, LGBTQ, and cis women with the tools and community to become agent of change inside and outside of systems that have traditionally disempowered us. I am committed to creating services and programs that meet women where they are. without judgment, restrictions, or discrimination. Faces of Women Impact gave me a glimpse of how that vision can become a reality, breaking down the barriers that divide women from one another so that we can build a world where all women can live their lives authentically without fear. I am forever grateful for the experience and proud to be a graduate of FOWI, and I thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Ivy Wolf-Turk, and I'm very happy to be here today. One of the most poignant lessons I learned from being part of this cohort is that in order to advocate well for others, I must first learn what is truly important to me in order to create a place of honor for every issue and every experience I've had, in order to embrace a different form of power that is rooted not in part, but in the whole truth of who I am. I noticed from the beginning in our first gathering that I was somewhat uncomfortable. The discomfort wasn't loud. It was kind of like the sound of a distant jackhammer at a construction site down the block. Incessant, though, and unsettling. And despite the fact that it was in the distance, it felt awful. And it showed up in my being defensive and annoyed and impatient in the meetings we were having. However, as life went on and then the pandemic worsened, it became easy to shut out the discomfort and go into the hidey hole of avoidance. And like so many other challenging emotions, this was a signal. It was like an internal GPS that kept telling me I must be off course. The discomfort was saying, Ivy, pay attention. Something important is happening here. What was it? All I kept hearing in my head was, you don't belong here. Belong where? I asked myself. In a place with sisters that have shared experience in prison and among colleagues who want to help me? I started to question my issue of belonging. How could I get comfortable with it? And I started to espouse to myself, where did I belong? Well, I can't tell you in 3 minutes today what I found, but it gives me an opening to look at how I belong to myself and ways in which I wasn't showing up fully. It was hard work, somehow being kind and generous with myself. Well, it was hard, the not belonging challenge, but it enabled me to question my assumptions about myself. And the first thing I realized was, you can't quit. There's so much in learned and lived experience that you have to share. I had to push myself to show up. And from a place where all my speaking and all my workshops and all my coaching was shut down at the beginning of the pandemic, I was able to assist in advocating for 33 women who are now home from prison. I was able to continue on advocating and facilitating Project Liberation, my wonderful group of women who are justice involved, every Friday. And I was able to create and launch a liberated life. My prison experience showed me that with limited movement, resources, and freedom, I have strength rather than something to be ashamed of. And it was in this Project Liberation and LOHM community I learned that even more. I continued doing all my workshops. I kayaked and walked in the woods. I was able to speak on issues about getting comfortable with being uncomfortable and getting paid for who I am, doing what I love, sharing my lived and learned experience. I am truly grateful to the LOHM and to my FOWI cohort. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to know down to my blood and my bones who I am and what I need to elevate and advocate for. As a very, very wonderful man, Martin Luther King once said, the ultimate measure of a man, and in this case a woman, is not where he stands in moments of comfort, but where he stands in moments of challenge and controversy. Thank you.
Aren't these sisters incredible? Now, I wish I could hear all of you just clapping and standing and hooping and hollering, but I know it's not, it's not possible right now. But in my energy, I feel it. But this has been incredible. I've had to touch up my makeup a few times because I'm just warmed, not only about just how far each sister has come, but just seeing the evolution and hearing all the incredible work that they're doing. So I am incredibly grateful that they believed in this vision as well and are moving and using the tools that they've had prior and shared with the sisters, but also learned through this program as they continue to move on and do incredible things in the world. And so, as the executive director of Ladies of Hope Ministries, I also have such a fun and great job too. And it's to introduce, at this particular time, impactful leaders like Kia Clark. So I am a New York Liberty fan because of the hoops, but also because of their infectious passion to impact women's lives in such a meaningful way. So I ask you to listen to the CEO of the New York Liberty, Kia Clark, and her journey, how the grit and vision that not only she personally has, but that she's imparted in the New York Liberty franchise and our community.
Thank you for that kind introduction, Topeka. I would certainly be remiss if I didn't express my sincere gratitude to you and all of the leadership and staff at Ladies of Hope Ministries. We have been great partners and friends over these years. You've been a friend of the New York Liberty organization, and we are certainly better for it. Now, good morning to each and every one of you in the graduating cohort of the Faces of Women in Prison, and to those of you joining in support of your family and your friends. It's my absolute privilege and my pleasure to be with you on today in celebration of your accomplishments. As CEO of the Liberty, I've always believed that I was enjoying a career in what I would describe as professional basketball, or maybe even marketing and sales. But I've discovered somewhere along the way, I'm really in the business of promoting and elevating strong women. So needless to say, I feel right at home today. You all are the first cohort. You set the tone. You represent the benchmark for success, for future success. But really the unique thing about each of you is your individual stories. And no one can tell your story the way that you can. As women, and I will add as women of color, using our voices is one of the most powerful things that we do. My personal mantra is a quote from Nelson Mandela. Courage is not the absence of fear. It's inspiring others to move beyond it. And we know that it takes courage to speak publicly in front of others. I'd like to share two very personal stories with you that I've encountered in my own career with very different outcomes. My first job right out of college was at the Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame. I was a ticket seller, and I came up with what I thought was a good idea to do a tour to local schools presenting on career paths and how I use my love of the game of basketball to get my first job. In exchange, I would sell the school that I was visiting tickets to the Hall of Fame Museum. That was my job. The more tickets I sold, the more money I made. The only problem was I would be so nervous before each session that I would become physically ill in the parking lot. But yet, I kept booking, I kept selling tickets, and I kept getting sick. But I was determined to overcome that feeling and to establish a career in sports. So fast forward a few years later, when I was working at the NBA, WNBA League office as a coordinator within their team marketing and business operations department. Essentially, my role, the role of my office was to collaborate on all aspects of business, everything in sports from ticketing to sponsorship, marketing, social media, and ultimately share best practices. An exceptionally large part of my responsibility was to travel around the country and give support to my colleagues who would be addressing teams in all of the markets in a seminar-like format. We would discuss ways that they could improve their business practices. And I was privileged to witness some of the most compelling, highly intellectual teaching moments. I was a part of a league that collaborated, that shared, that delivered messaging to people, all the teams that were striving for success. Speech after speech, PowerPoint presentation after presentation, I was learning so much. I did this job for nearly 4 years. I was young, I was eager, but I was never asked to speak at any of those league-wide meetings. At that point in my career, I felt that I had so much to offer, a perspective that very much reflected the very people that we were trying to target, but my voice wasn't even being called on. And that was all the motivation I needed to continue pressing forward. I would find the courage and the confidence, but most importantly, the opportunity. And here we are on days like today. I get to spend some time with you beautiful people. And in this career, I found my why. And on many occasions, I now have the chance to amplify and represent the women of the New York Liberty. I often have the privilege to use my voice. And if you aren't familiar, we have some mighty women on the court in this New York Liberty team who also speak up. They also advocate for important issues and things that matter to them. I know firsthand that it takes courage to share deeply personal stories about your life and your experiences, particularly when it pertains to incarceration and the criminal justice system. And each time that you share your story and that you speak out, you are moving beyond that fear. You are moving beyond doubt and that little voice in your head that sometimes tells you you're not good enough. That little voice that tells you you're not qualified enough. And maybe even that voice that says this won't change anything. You, in fact, are giving life to Nelson Mandela's words. You are inspiring others through your own strength. I recently learned that the themes of FOWI are growth, tenacity, and empowerment. And after hearing from just a few of your stories, I fully understand why. Growth. I don't have to know each of you individually to know that this has been a journey. You set out to become professionally trained public speakers through this program, and today you have accomplished your goal. Look at how far you've come. Think back to the first day of training. Now think about where you are today. There has been exponential growth, right? And just think, this is only the beginning. Tenacity. Now I have to be honest, I'm a former basketball player, and as an athlete, when I think about tenacity, my mind goes straight back to my basketball days. I think about my coaches and what they would call getting after it, persistence, determination, perseverance, all of the fundamentals needed to accomplish a goal. Each of you has been tenacious in your pursuit of changing the narrative and telling your own stories authentically and unapologetically. I commend you for that commitment and for your tenacious and unrelenting spirit. Empowerment. With your training, you now have the power and the authority over your own narrative. Empowerment is defined as the process of becoming stronger and more confident, especially in controlling one's life and claiming one's rights. If that doesn't describe what has happened in the FOWI program, I am not sure what does. And it's clear that this process, this program, is not just about you. It's also about empowering and encouraging others to share their deeply personal stories. It's about influencing policymakers to think about all people in their decision-making, including those who have been formerly incarcerated. It's about empowering younger women and even girls to take heed and learn from your experiences. All of these things are part of your empowerment process, and that is incredibly selfless and it's praiseworthy. In closing, I have to thank the light that is Topeka K. Sam for inviting me here today. You have impeccable vision and commitment to such worthy causes. And to the 2020 graduates and the very first class of the Faces of Women Imprisoned, I wish you all nothing but success and God's love as you begin your next chapter. Remember, no one can tell your story the way that you can. Congratulations.
Thank you, Kia. Your wisdom, direction, and engagement with us today is something we can apply to our daily lives. I'm excited for the next half of our cohort to come before you. But before I go on, I want to take the time to thank Topeka for her vision and her platform. You have changed the trajectory of our culture forever, and for that, I will be forever grateful. Thank you to Sally. Thank you to Kate. Thank you to our supporters and our sponsors. Thank you to the amazing women of this cohort. I know your lives will shine. Thank you, Kia. Your wisdom, direction, and engagement with us today is something we can apply to our lives daily. I'm excited for the next half of our cohort to come before you. But before we go on, I just want to take the time again to thank Topeka for her vision and her platform. Your vision has changed the trajectory of our culture forever, and for that, I will be forever indebted. Thank you to our sponsors and our supporters. Thank you to Sally and Kate. Thank you to the amazing women of this year's cohort. I know your lives will shine brighter than the North Star. Thank you again for joining us, and we hope that you enjoy the rest of our segment.
Good morning. My name is Monica Banks, and today marks an important day in my life, yet it is the beginning of an unfinished journey. To get to this point was an important achievement in itself. I have had so many letdowns and promises made to me since walking out of federal prison that I lost count. My past is one that many would love to erase from their memory, but not me. By living through these horrible experiences, I have gained a great amount of knowledge and wisdom, which molded me into the woman I am today. I usually speak about going to prison and being a first-time nonviolent offender that happens to be a Black woman. But today, I think it's important to share that I survived everything that was put in place for me to fail. I must concentrate now on enhancing my future and setting extraordinary examples for those who love me and for those who will follow me. I must be tomorrow's positive image, and my actions must make a statement and send a clear message. The person I am today, I had to reflect and accept accountability of my past actions. I had to let go of my anger and fear. I had to learn to forgive. I had to look within myself and see my self-worth. Doing these things weren't easy, but that is where Faces of Women in Prison came in. For years, I've been battling with demons from my past and just so much negativity that it was draining life out of me. I decided I wanted real change. I wanted to speak up and expose the truth about what life was like for women like myself in prison daily. I wanted to address the many ways women, especially Black women, are routinely marginalized and rendered invisible in public debates about criminal justice reform and mass incarceration. While the criminal justice reform movement is making waves, 9 times out of 10, these movements are solely focused on our Black men. Van Jones spoke the other evening about there being an unspoken pain about how Black women get treated, worse than anyone else. We get forgotten in conversations and abused by the system. We continue to fight for humanity, and it seems to fall on deaf ears. Breonna Taylor's case is a prime example of how we get treated unfairly. Being part of the Faces of Women in Prison cohort gave me the training to be comfortable speaking in public, to be persistent, and to have the strength to address these uncomfortable conversations. This program gave me the tools to inspire people with my story of how I overcame the trials and tribulations in my life. And hopefully, by me opening up about my life, this helps become someone else's survival guide. My goal moving forward is to empower others, to make real change and fight for what we believe in. Using my voice is still foreign, but I'm getting pretty used to it now, and it's necessary. My next life plans are continuing to build up my agency, Unfinished Journey, that will replace traditional recruiting with digital tools to help impacted individuals gain meaningful employment, mental health care, and housing. I will also continue fighting alongside my daughter that was assaulted by a school staff member to dismantle structures of oppression involving Black girls in the school system. The abuse and policing of our Black girls must come to an end. We must disrupt discriminatory policies in the education system. We must do more safekeeping for our Black girls. In closing, I want to give thanks to everyone at Faces of Women in Prison and Ladies of Hope Ministries. You all are making an impact, and the world needs humans like you. I also want to extend my heartfelt gratitude to Trish Lewis, who is the program director for Faces of Women in Prison, who worked so hard making sure I reached this special day, and to my mentor and the executive director of Ladies of Hope Ministries, Topeka Sam. I know I drive you crazy at times, but that's what sisters do. She embraced me as family, had hard conversations with me that I needed to hear, gave me a platform to tell my story, as well as supported and believed in me. I want to give thanks to my son and daughter for believing in me, understanding my fight, and walking that walk with me, loving me unconditionally, and for constantly cheering me on, even if it's for the smallest accomplishments. I also want to thank my parents for being the best support system ever. The two of you rock. Lastly, I want to thank my sis Starling that I met through Faces of Women in Prison. We have built a sisterhood that will last a lifetime. You are the definition of a real one, and I'm thankful to continue on this journey of friendship, sisterhood, and ride or die when it comes to dismantling this criminal justice system. Overall, I have learned to take my life and make it the best story in the world, to not waste it. I owe it to myself to become everything I ever dreamed of. When things feel uncomfortable, I will continue to grow, keeping my mind focused and never checking the rearview mirror. My destiny is in front of me, and I plan on making history before I go. Thanks, everyone.
Good afternoon. My name is Promise Rabatu, but many know me as Promise Love. First, I would like to thank God and Ladies of Hope Ministries for this opportunity, and also thank you all for being a part of this special moment for me and my fellow sisters. When I was told that I could speak about my life in this past year, all I could do was smile. And the main thing that popped into my head was the word breaking. And this has definitely been a breaking and rebuilding season and year. When people think of break, you'll assume it's a bad thing, because to break is to destroy, ruin, or dismantle. But for me, all those things were necessary. Everything that was holding me back from elevating in my true purpose had to be destroyed and dismantled. And that is when I began to rise and discover my true potential. I knew that God called me to be a full-time entrepreneur, but I was afraid to walk away from a previous company I was working with due to the comfortability and lack of confidence that I could do it on my own. And September of last year is when I was forced to trust God and build my own massage therapy business from the ground up. And although it was difficult, I am proud to say that it was necessary and the best thing that could have happened to me and for my career. October 25th of last year, I reached a breaking point that also forced me to shift my mindset into becoming more selfish when it comes to my emotional and mental well-being. After I was released from federal custody in July of 2018, I was so fixated on making sure my family was okay, trying to make up for lost time, and just trying to be the glue in every situation. And by neglecting my needs and what was best for me, that eventually put me in a bad mental space. And that is when I had to step back and regroup, reflect, and really tap into what and how God wanted me to do things moving forward. I started speaking at different schools and nonprofit organizations and was sharing my story with girls and boys between the ages of 13 and 18 years old. I always talked about the importance in self-love and having healthy outlets and the negative impact of not having those two can have. I also talked about and shared my experience with self-inflicting pain and experience with alternatives for healthier healing when it comes to one's emotions and how I ended up in federal prison. And Faces was a huge help with that, because the cohort not only increased my confidence in speaking, but they helped me with the process and my thoughts when it comes to the mission, reason, and my target audience when it comes to sharing my story and using it to help others. This past year, I also started and created the I Promise brand, and the purpose is to provide a platform of transparency so people don't feel alone in their everyday struggles. And although it's a clothing line, we also will be interviewing different types of people from different walks of life who believe their struggles weren't just for them, but also a testimony of hope that you too can make it through what you are currently facing. Last but not least, Faces helped me deal with my fear of speaking about my social anxiety. Nobody really knew I suffered from social anxiety, and I never thought I would ever be ready to talk about it. Until one day, God put it on my heart to speak about social integration after incarceration for one of our speaking engagements, and even though I wasn't ready, I had to be obedient and get ready. And even though it was difficult to do, that was one of my most proudest moments. And I am grateful that Trish, Topeka, and many others were able to help me through it. Sometimes you have to identify a problem boldly so you then know how to solve it properly. If I allowed fear to keep me quiet about my social anxiety, I wouldn't be healed and free today. All in all, I am grateful for this past year, and I'm even more grateful for Faces and Ladies of Hope Ministry for how they have helped. And even though we may not speak every day, there is a comfort in knowing that there are people that are there for you, even when you fall, who will lift you up and willing to push you and guide you to be better. Thank you, and I love you all, and I really appreciate it.
I will always shine. I remember sitting in that dingy, dusty cell, feeling worthless and that my life was over. And now I'm using my voice to amplify the issues we as Black women face daily in this unjust system, like the fact that women of color make up nearly 50% of the female prison population. Never in a million years did I think I'd be sitting on the inside of a cage fighting for my freedom. Yet right now, there are thousands of women in America fighting not only for their freedom, but for their life. Locked away in cages they can't social distance in, praying and hoping for compassionate release from an uncompassionate system that locks away mothers, grandmothers, sisters, daughters, friends, and caregivers for decades, while tearing apart families and causing lifelong trauma for generations to come. As a Black woman, I am constantly fighting for my life to have value in this world. Every day, I am reminded of how little they actually value Black women. Breonna Taylor is one of the many women who have violently lost their hands at the Breonna Taylor is one of the many women who have violently lost their life at the hands of what we call the criminal justice system. A system designed at every level for us to fail. Yet here we are, not failing, and excelling and using our story to impact the same system that constantly keeps their foot on our necks. I'm uber grateful for this opportunity and platform that the LOHM and Faces of Women in Prison has given me. This last year, I have grown tremendously in so many ways. This program has allowed me to hone my voice and step into rooms that I never even thought was possible. I have made a lifelong friend and sister. Shout out to Monica Banks. Trish, you are amazing. Topeka K. Sam, thank you for inspiring me and so many women like me to use our voice and giving us a platform to do that. No matter how many times I had to repeat my inmate number, no matter how many times I was belittled or how many times my dignity was stripped away from me, I never let the system break me. These same failures are catapulting me into success. This last year, although there was a lot going on and it was a little difficult, I launched my podcast, Fresh Out the Feds, where I give voice to all women who've been impacted by mass incarceration. You can go to freshouttofeds.com and look up all our episodes. You can listen to anywhere where you can listen to podcasts. You can watch my work as a screenwriter right now on Amazon Prime on a show called Washed, or you can go to washseries.com. It was a show I wrote for. We filmed it right here in Dallas, Texas. I am currently in pre-production for my documentary, which focuses on women who have been impacted by mass incarceration, but are breaking down every barrier and unapologetically revealing that the master's tools will never dismantle the master's house. And although I have accomplished so much, there is so much work to do because I am not free until all of my sisters are free. Thank you.
Good morning from Denver, Colorado. I thank you all for joining us today. My name is Lauren Reed, and I work for the Alliance for Higher Education in Prison. For more than a year, I have been part of the Faces of Women Imprisoned. My sisters on this journey have said so many great things today. They are strong and powerful women, and I am beyond blessed to have met them through this cohort. However, 3 people who have been on this journey with us are absent today. I've decided to use my voice and this platform to express why my sisters and I have a moral dilemma with this event. A little bit of background. Our sponsor for this graduation is Global Tellink, commonly known as GTL. For those that don't know, GTL is one of the largest providers of telecommunications within the prison system. They have approximately 52% of the market, according to the Prison Policy Initiative. Global Tellink has profited billions of dollars from families who have been impacted by incarceration and those suffering behind the walls since 1980. And Global Tellink is not the only telecommunications company financially profiting from our families. The prison phone industry is a $1.2 billion industry, and GTL earned a profit of over $360 million in 2019 alone. Personally, my family and my friends went broke trying to cover the costs of calls I would make home during my incarceration. Countless times, my mother's phone was shut off until she had to let me know that they couldn't afford the calls anymore. It broke her heart not to be able to have that connection with me, but the cost of one 15-minute phone call was more than my mom made in 1 hour worth of work. When I spoke to some colleagues about Global Tellink, one of them disclosed that when he was incarcerated, a man he lived with in the prison would work all month to be able to afford one call home to his elderly mother. This is important to note because the wages in the prisons are on average 13 to 50 cents an hour for work. This wage, combined with the cost of communications, makes it near impossible to buy other necessities without outside help. GTL and corporations like them are profiting off incarceration and have caused real harm to millions of people. Since my release, things have gotten increasingly worse. They've charged by the minute for people to use tablets as e-readers. Some prisons have banned books entirely from being sent in because they want people to purchase tablets through GTL and other companies, and then they charge them to read a book on that tablet. When an average novel takes about 20 hours to read, the cost is $300 to read just one novel. At the same time, I question if states are getting kickbacks from these companies because they are changing policies to ensure e-readers are the only options for people who are incarcerated. This is truly unacceptable. We must not allow this kind of profiting to continue. I call upon GTL and corporations like them to lower the cost of calls and actively work towards making these calls free for everyone, like they have done at Rikers Island. Global Tellink should do work not just to sponsor a graduation like this one, but to give restitution to families who they have done financial harm to since 1980. GTL should stop charging hidden fees for prison calls, such as connection fees. Individual states need to implement a system of checks and balances to ensure the cost to families is not overlooked for higher commission rates from these companies. In the words of the late Congressman John Lewis, we must get into good trouble, necessary trouble, and help redeem the soul of America. So I'm here today to ask Deb Alderson, the CEO of GTL, how are you working to make human connection between family members free and available to all incarcerated people? What are you doing to stop this financial burden on families of those who are incarcerated? How will you utilize the voices here today to help dismantle the system of harm caused by profiting off of incarceration? Today, we should have celebrated 11 women who are the faces of women imprisoned. Instead, we only heard from 8 of us. We all shared a true piece of our journey, and the 3 women who abstained from participating did so out of moral obligation not to be associated with a company like GTL. These women who put their time into this cohort were not given equal treatment from the faces of women imprisoned in the end. While we have been encouraged to use our voices, we have also learned that dissent has consequences. I'm here today to speak truth to power and ask that we all do the same to ensure that our voices are heard and ultimately the system is changed. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for each and every woman for using their voice today to be heard. We treat everyone fairly here, and everyone is treated equally and with love. Thank you so much for all of our past speakers, Thank you to all of you who are still tuning in with us today. And now we will hear from our graduation sponsor, the CEO of GTL, Deb Alderson.
First, I want to thank everyone for this opportunity to talk to you today. And Lauren, I appreciate your candid remarks, and I am prepared to discuss some of those things today. Anyway, let me go ahead and just get started here. Again, I appreciate the opportunity. I really appreciate the opportunity to partner with Ladies of Hope Ministry, and particularly to address the first cohort of the Faces of Women Imprisoned. I know that it seems like strange bedfellows to have GTL sponsoring this event. And again, Lauren, I do appreciate your comments. And I'll be brutally honest. Prior to joining this company a little over 2.5 years ago, I would not have expected to see GTL associated with this event. What I'm hoping to do today is to demonstrate to all of you that it is a different GTL. We are committed to change. We do have an opportunity with our current support of those who are incarcerated to provide more impactful communications. We also have to do that at a much more reasonable price. I am personally working with our team to make sure that we are pushing out more free content, that we are using our technology to make sure that you're better connected, but most importantly, that we are the company that recognizes those who are incarcerated and your family and friends as critical stakeholders and someone that we need to serve. The industry in the past really ignored those who were incarcerated, ignored the importance of that impactful connection to your family and friends. Instead, as you said, Lauren, and many others have said, focused more on the bottom line. That is not GTL today, and that's not the GTL of tomorrow. We are committed to you. We are committed to your families. I personally reach out to those who are incarcerated. I reach out to family and friends on a monthly blog. I make myself available. I'm engaged. I want to hear your concerns. I want to hear how we can help. We do need to be a better corporate citizen. And it's important that I don't just say this, but that we walk the talk. That's one reason I was so honored and humbled, very humbled, after hearing from all of you, to be provided the opportunity by Topeka and the Ladies of Hope Ministry to be a partner and a sponsor in this very, very important graduation. I hope to continue to show our support and to walk the talk. We're investing more and more every day in reentry, in free training, free education, free ebooks. To your point, Lauren, you're right. It should not cost $300 to read a novel. We are making sure that we're providing free messaging. During the pandemic alone, which is still going on, unfortunately, we've offered over 22 million phone calls, free phone calls, over 2.5 million free messages, over 6 million minutes of free video visitation. But that's not enough. I saw what happened during the pandemic, and it just reinforced even more the importance of that impactful communication and that impactful connection, and how GTL could actually lean forward and help change people's lives, help people sleep at night, give them a better quality of life, letting those who are incarcerated and their family and friends know that they're safe and have that important connection. So we've rolled out a free calling program and free messaging program outside of the pandemic. It will touch over 530,000 incarcerated individuals. We'll be offering free calling and free messaging every week to everyone who's incarcerated. This gives everyone an opportunity to talk to their family and friends. But we won't stop there. Again, I have to prove to you our commitment. I have to prove to you that we're a different company. And I'm excited about that opportunity. I want to assure all of you, I would not be at GTL and leading GTL if I did not think we could make a difference. I'm proud that I was selected as CEO back in 2018. I saw it as an opportunity to actually satisfy some of my personal goals, which are around affordable housing, helping those in need. I've had family and friends who have been incarcerated. I've been that person on the other end of the phone line paying those fees. And I do know how serious it is and how important it is to drive that cost down and to improve the connections. So you have my personal commitment. I am more than happy to talk to you, Lauren, and I'm so sorry that others felt that they couldn't join today's celebration of the faces of women imprisoned, and I'd be more than happy to talk to them. So please reach out to me anytime, deb.alderson@gtl.net, and I'll be happy to talk to you. I want to hear your ideas. I want to hear how we can continue to be a better corporate citizen and help all of you in your journey. Thank you again, Topeka, Tricia, for this opportunity, and I hope everyone has a wonderful day. Congratulations to all. Thank you.
Thank you so much, GTL. Thank you so much for all the GTL employees who tuned in. And thank you again, Deb Alderson. You know, first I'd like to start by saying I want to thank our sisters, each sister who used their voice today to speak their truth and to share in this celebration. It is incredibly important that women are authentic and that they share their experiences, because that is the only way that we can inform change and changing things in the system that we are actually faced with every single day. As Deb pointed out, yes, Ladies of Hope Ministries was an unlikely bedfellow for GTL, but the way LOHM moves in our work is that we appreciate the opportunity to work with others that are not like us. Because if we don't walk into the rooms and have those conversations, those very uncomfortable conversations about racism, about gender bias, about xenophobia, about all the isms that we can think about that are hindering and suffocating our country, especially in times like this, that the systems will continue to build and grow and not change. And so it's critical that we are having and building relationships with things that we typically would never do. Because without it, systems continue to move and grow and build. Families and communities continue to be devastated and impacted. And for me personally, it is critical that we continue to use our voice in order to change. Because if I don't go in the room and talk about these things, if Lauren didn't mention how she was feeling to us prior to the graduation and having the opportunity to speak truth for her and those sisters who chose not to participate, then GTL, everyone who is listening, any telecommunications company, any system or institution that is purposely just profiting off of the backs of vulnerable and marginalized people, then without hearing their truth, there's no way that you know the impacts that your actions are having. So I'm grateful. I'm grateful for the sisters again, for growing, for being strong enough to say the things that most people wanted to say, but many people fear to say. And so for the LOHM to be impactful, again, we must navigate with all partners. And it takes listening, new pathways, and partnering for our future sisters. It's not about us, it's about them. We are in a time where we cannot always use our own experiences. We have to understand all aspects of incarceration and use our tenacity to ensure a healthier system for the future girls and women. I thank all of you for joining us today and continuing with the LOHM on our journey to be epic, to end poverty and incarceration of women and girls. This event will be on our site, www.thelohm.org, for those of you who have not saw it and who would like to. And please, yes, you can donate to assist to bring us our next cohort, number 2, for 20 and 2021. Again, I want to thank our funders, Honor Ventures, Foundation Chanel, Art for Justice, and Ford Foundation for making the Faces of Women in Prison a reality, to giving the cohort an opportunity to learn, to grow, and to materialize their dreams throughout this last year, and to move forward and creating new opportunities for our sisters to begin to empower themselves to use their voice to make systemic change. God bless you all. Thank you for joining. And we look forward to building new relationships, partnering, and changing the world as we know it.